The laughter began before the auctioneer even raised his hammer. It moved across the dusty yard in Dry Creek, Wyoming, sharp and cruel, making every man near the rail turn toward the wooden gate. Nathan Cole stood near the back with his hat pulled low, trying to keep his mind on the only reason he had ridden 20 miles into town. He needed horses. Not good horses, not pretty horses, just two animals strong enough to pull a loaded wagon and help move cattle before the first winter snow covered the northern trail. His ranch was already close to ruin. Half his herd had been taken by fever. His barn roof leaked. The bank had given him 30 days to pay what he owed. If he failed, the Cole ranch would be sold to the highest bidder. It was the same land his father had cleared with his own hands. Nathan had $12 in his pocket and no other plan. The auctioneer slapped the rail. "Next lot," he shouted. "Two chestnut mares, thin but their legs are sound." Two horses were pulled into the yard. Their coats were dull and their bones showed beneath their skin. One had a cut above its front leg, the other kept shaking its head as though afraid of every hand that came near it. Several men laughed. "Those things will be dead before winter," someone called. Nathan did not laugh. He watched how the mares stood. Their eyes were tired but clear. Their knees were straight. Their breathing was steady. They had been treated badly, but they were not broken. The auctioneer raised his hand. $5 for the pair. No one answered. $4. A rancher near the front lifted one finger. $4. Nathan waited. $5, another man said. The bidding moved slowly. Most men did not want to feed two weak horses during a hard season. Nathan knew the risk, but he also knew he could not afford anything better. $6, Nathan called. The auctioneer pointed toward him. $6 from Cole, do I hear 7? A short man in a gray coat raised his hand. 7. Nathan felt the coins in his pocket. If he went higher, he would have almost nothing left for flour or feed. But without horses, there would be no ranch to save. 8, Nathan said. The man in the gray coat shook his head. The auctioneer looked around the yard. $8 going once. Nathan kept his face still. Going twice. The hammer struck the rail. Sold to Nathan Cole. Nathan breathed out slowly. $8 for two mares was a gamble, but it was the only one he had. He stepped toward the gate to take the ropes. Then the auctioneer smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Hold on, Cole," he said. "There is one more thing that comes with them." The crowd began laughing again. Nathan turned toward the far gate. Two men dragged a woman into the yard. Her hands were tied in front of her. A dirty brown shawl hung from her shoulders. Her faded blue dress was torn at the hem, and one side of her face was bruised. Her dark red hair had fallen loose around her cheeks. She did not fight. She did not cry. She only stood beside the horses with her head lowered, as if she had learned that showing fear made cruel men enjoy themselves more. Nathan felt his stomach tighten. "What is this?" he asked. The auctioneer shrugged. "She came with the horses when the trader brought them in. Says she has no family, no papers, and nowhere to go. Nobody wants her, so she goes free with the animals." More laughter filled the yard. A man leaning against the fence called out, "Maybe she can pull a plow better than the mares." Another voice said, "She does not look strong enough to carry a bucket." Nathan stared at the rope around her wrists. "I did not buy a woman." The auctioneer spread his hands. "You did not pay for her. Take her, leave her, or send her down the road. Makes no difference to me." A large man stepped away from the drinking house wall. He wore a black vest and a polished gun belt. Nathan knew him at once. Calvin Rusk. Rusk owned 3 cattle spread south of Dry Creek. He also owned half the town through unpaid loans and frightened men. People said women who entered his house did not return the same. Rusk looked at the woman and smiled. "I will take her," he said. "Save Cole the trouble." The woman did not lift her head, but her tied hands closed into fists. Nathan saw it. That small movement told him everything. He stepped between Rusk and the woman. "Untie her." The laughter stopped. Rusk raised one eyebrow. You planning to keep her, Cole? Nathan looked at the auctioneer. I said untie her. The auctioneer glanced toward Rusk, then back at Nathan. She is part of your lot. No person is part of a lot. Rusk moved closer. You have enough trouble already, Cole. Your ranch is dying. The bank will own it before the month is over. You do not need another mouth to feed. Nathan's jaw tightened. My trouble is my own. Rusk's smile disappeared. You are making a mistake. Nathan held his ground. Maybe untie her. For a long moment, no one moved. Then a young stable boy stepped forward with a knife. He cut through the rope. It fell into the dust. The woman rubbed her wrists but still said nothing. Nathan took the reins of the two mares and walked toward the road. He had gone only a few steps when he heard soft footsteps behind him. He turned. The woman was following. Rusk stood near the gate, watching them with cold eyes. Nathan waited until they had left the auction yard and walked beyond the last buildings of Dry Creek. Then he stopped beside a dry cottonwood tree. The woman stopped too. You do not have to come with me, Nathan said. You are free. She kept her eyes on the ground. I have a ranch 6 hours north, he continued. You can eat there and sleep in the spare room tonight. Tomorrow I can bring you back to town or take you wherever you wish. She said nothing. Nathan studied her face. She looked tired but not weak. Her hands were dirty, yet her fingers were smooth. They did not look like the hands of a field worker. Can you speak? He asked. Her eyes rose to his for one quick moment. They were green and sharp, filled with fear, thought, and something else he could not understand. Then she lowered them again. Nathan nodded. All right, you do not have to talk. He turned back toward the road. The journey took most of the day. Nathan rode his old gelding while leading the two mares. The woman walked beside them without asking for water or rest. When Nathan offered her his horse, she shook her head. Near sunset, the Cole ranch appeared between two low hills. The house was small and weathered. The barn leaned toward the east. Several fence posts had fallen. Beyond them, a weak herd moved slowly through a field of dry grass. Nathan felt shame as he looked at the place through a stranger's eyes. It is not much, he said, but no one will tie your hands here. The woman looked at the house for a long moment. Nathan led the horses to the trough and gave them water. Then he pointed toward the house. There is a wash basin in the kitchen. I will find you something to eat. She followed him inside, but remained near the door. Nathan heated beans, cut bread, and placed the food on the table. The woman sat slowly. At first, she only stared at the plate. Then she began eating. She tried to move calmly, but hunger soon overcame her. She finished every bite and wiped the plate clean with the last piece of bread. Nathan looked away to protect her pride. You can sleep in the room beside the kitchen, he said. The door locks from the inside. Her hands stopped above the plate. Nathan understood. No one will enter. She nodded once. It was the first answer she had given him. Nathan slept badly that night. He kept thinking about Rusk's warning, the bank papers in his desk, and the silent woman sleeping under his roof. Before dawn, he woke to the sound of metal striking wood. He reached for his rifle and hurried outside. The woman stood beside the wagon shed with a hammer in her hand. She had already repaired 2 loose boards. The chestnut mares stood nearby, calm as she checked the injured leg of one horse. Nathan lowered the rifle. You do not have to work for your food. She pressed gently around the mare's cut. The horse did not pull away. Then the woman spoke. The wound is not deep, but dirt is trapped inside it. If you use the wrong salve, the leg will swell by tomorrow. Nathan froze. Her voice was clear, calm, and educated. You can talk. Yes. Why did you pretend you could not? She looked toward the distant road. Silent women hear things men would never say in front of someone they respect. Nathan walked closer. What is your name? She hesitated. Clara Whitfield. Nathan Cole. I know. That answer made him pause. How do you know my name? Clara stood and wiped her hands on her dress. I heard Calvin Rusk talking about you 3 nights ago. Nathan felt a cold weight settle in his chest. What did he say? Clara looked toward the dry pasture and then at the tired cattle beyond the fence. He said the bank would take your ranch in 29 days. Nathan's face hardened. That is no secret. No, Clara said, but the reason your cattle are dying is. Nathan stared at her. Clara stepped closer and lowered her voice. Your herd is not sick, Nathan. The morning wind moved through the dead grass. They are being poisoned. Nathan said nothing. Clara met his eyes. And Calvin Rusk is paying someone on this ranch to do it. Nathan stared at Clara as the wind pushed dry grass against the fence. Someone on my ranch? He asked. Clara nodded. You have 3 hired men. 2, Nathan said. Eli Brooks left last week. He did not leave. Nathan's face changed. What do you mean? Clara looked toward the barn. Calvin Rusk had him killed. The words struck Nathan harder than a fist. Eli had worked beside him for 6 years. He had laughed loudly, complained about Nathan's coffee, and treated every injured animal like a child. Nathan had believed Eli had run away after stealing money from the kitchen drawer. You better be certain, Nathan said. I heard Rusk order it. Clara walked to the mare and began cleaning the cut with warm water. Nathan stayed beside the fence, trying to understand what she had told him. Where were you when you heard this? In Rusk's house. Nathan looked at her bruised cheek. Were you working there? No. Her voice became colder. I was a prisoner. Nathan did not speak. Clara wrapped a clean strip of cloth around the mare's leg. My father was Judge Samuel Whitfield, she said. He handled land cases in Pine Hollow County. 3 months ago, Calvin Rusk offered him money to approve false claims against small ranches. Nathan knew the name Whitfield. The judge had disappeared during a trip through the mountains. People said his wagon had gone over a cliff. My father refused, Clara continued. He collected proof instead, bank records, false cattle reports, signed orders, and names of men Rusk paid. What happened to him? Clara's hand stopped. Rusk found out. Nathan's jaw tightened. He killed your father. I did not see it happen, but I heard them speak about his body. Clara turned to him. My father gave me the evidence before they came. He told me to take it to the federal court in Silver Ridge. Where is it? I hid it. Nathan stepped closer. Where? Inside Rusk's house. Nathan stared at her. You escaped without it. I did not choose when I escaped. They moved me with stolen horses because Rusk planned to send me across the territory. He thought no one would search for a woman hidden inside a stock wagon. Nathan looked at the 2 chestnut mares. These horses belong to Rusk. They belong to a rancher named Walter Hale. Rusk took his land last month. Nathan rubbed a hand across his face. Why throw you into the auction? The wagon driver got frightened when a deputy searched the road. He left the horses and me with a trader. The trader wanted quick money and no questions. Clara stepped toward the house. Rusk came to the auction because he learned where I was. If you had not spoken, he would have taken me back. Nathan remembered the way Rusk had smiled. He also remembered the bank notice inside his desk. You said someone here is poisoning my cattle. Yes. Who? Clara looked toward the bunkhouse. Which worker has been with you the shortest time? Frank Dalton, 6 months. Rusk spoke his name. Nathan's hand moved toward his pistol. Clara grabbed his arm. Do not confront him yet. He is killing my herd. And he may know where Eli's body is. Nathan's anger burned through him, but he forced himself to stay still. What do you suggest? Watch him. They spent the morning working as if nothing had changed. Nathan repaired the water pump while Clara cared for the mares. Frank came out of the bunkhouse after sunrise. He was a thin man with pale hair and a narrow face. He smiled when he saw Clara. "Who is she?" "Traveler," Nathan answered, "staying one night." Frank's eyes moved over her torn dress. "Where did you find her?" "At an auction." Frank's smile disappeared for only a moment. Clara saw it. Nathan saw it too. Frank walked toward the pasture. "I will check the south herd." Nathan nodded. "Take your time." The moment Frank disappeared beyond the hill, Clara entered the bunkhouse. Nathan followed. Frank's room was simple. A bed, a wooden chest, one shirt hanging from a nail, and a pair of muddy boots. Clara opened the chest. Inside were clothes and a small bottle wrapped in cloth. Nathan picked it up. There was no label. Clara removed the cork and smelled it carefully. "Arsenic." Nathan's fingers tightened around the bottle. "He has been putting this in the water." Clara searched beneath the clothes. Her hand touched a folded paper. She opened it. Nathan leaned over her shoulder. The note had only one sentence. "Keep the herd weak until the bank takes the property." It was signed with the letter R. Nathan read it twice. Then he saw something else beneath the note. Eli's pocket watch. Nathan picked it up slowly. The silver cover had a small dent near the edge. He had seen Eli open it every evening to look at the tiny picture of his wife. "He killed him," Nathan whispered. A floorboard creaked behind them. Nathan turned. Frank stood in the doorway with a revolver raised. "You should have stayed out of my things." Nathan moved in front of Clara. "Where is Eli?" Frank smiled. "Somewhere the coyotes have probably found him." Nathan stepped forward. Frank pulled back the hammer. "One more step and she dies first." Clara's eyes moved toward the open window. Frank noticed. "Do not try it." He pointed the gun at Nathan. "Put the bottle and note on the bed." Nathan obeyed. "Now you're gunned." Nathan slowly removed his pistol and placed it on the floor. Frank entered the room. "Rusk said you were stubborn. I told him stubborn men still bleed." "What happens now?" Nathan asked. "You ride into town and tell the bank you are leaving the territory. Then you sign the ranch over." "And Clara?" Frank looked at her. "Rusk wants her alive." Clara's face stayed calm. "He must be frightened." Frank laughed. "He owns this county." "No," Clara replied. "He owns frightened men." Frank's smile faded. "You talk too much." He moved closer to her. That was his mistake. Clara grabbed the hanging shirt and threw it across his face. Nathan rushed forward. The gun fired, blasting a hole through the wall. Nathan struck Frank's wrist. The revolver fell. Frank hit Nathan in the ribs and drove him against the bed. Clara kicked the weapon under the table. The two men crashed into the wall. Frank pulled a knife from his boot. Nathan caught his wrist just before the blade reached his throat. They struggled across the floor, Frank's face twisted with rage. "You already lost, Cole." Nathan drove his knee into Frank's stomach. The knife dropped. Clara picked up the revolver. "Move away from him." Frank froze. Clara held the gun with both hands. Her arms trembled, but her eyes did not. Nathan stepped back. Frank slowly raised his hands. "You will not shoot." Clara aimed at his chest. "You do not know me." For the first time, Frank looked afraid. Nathan tied his hands with rope and dragged him to the barn. They secured him to a heavy post. "Tell me where Eli is," Nathan said. Frank spat into the dirt. Nathan struck the post beside his head. "Where?" Frank laughed. "You think this changes anything? Rusk has the sheriff, the bank, and every road out of Dry Creek." Clara stepped closer. "But he does not have the proof." Frank looked at her. "You cannot reach it." I can. His eyes narrowed. Clara understood. You know where it is. Frank said nothing. Nathan crouched in front of him. Where did they take Eli? Frank looked toward the hills. Old mining cut near Blackstone Creek. Nathan stood. We ride there now. Clara shook her head. Frank cannot be left alone. We take him. They tied Frank across one of the mares and rode south. The sun climbed higher, turning the land white with heat. Blackstone Creek had dried to a thin line of muddy water. Beyond it stood an abandoned mine, dark and silent. Frank refused to speak. Nathan searched the rocks. Near the mine entrance, Clara found a torn piece of blue cloth caught on a thorn. Nathan recognized it from Eli's work shirt. They entered the mine. The air inside was cold. Their footsteps echoed against the stone. After 30 yards, Nathan smelled something terrible. He found Eli behind a pile of broken boards. Nathan removed his hat. For a long time, he could not move. Eli had been shot once in the back. Clara stood beside Nathan without speaking. Nathan knelt and found a leather pouch beneath Eli's hand. Inside was a small notebook. He opened it. The pages listed dates, cattle deaths, and every time Frank had poured poison into the trough. Eli had discovered the plan. He had written one final line. If anything happens to me, Rusk did it. Nathan closed the notebook. We have enough to arrest him, Clara said. Not in Dry Creek. No. She looked toward Frank. But we may have enough to force him to help us. Frank sat outside the mine, tied to a tree. Nathan placed Eli's notebook in front of him. You killed a man who left proof. Frank's face lost color. The federal court will hang you. I did what Rusk ordered. That will not save you. Frank looked between Nathan and Clara. What do you want? Clara answered. Tell us how to enter Rusk's house without being seen. Frank shook his head. He will kill me. Nathan's voice turned hard. You should have thought of that before you killed Eli. Frank swallowed. There is an old storm tunnel under the house. It begins behind the dry well near the eastern fence. Clara studied him carefully. Where are Rusk's guards at night? 2 at the front, 1 near the stable, sometimes another walks the back porch. And the room where he kept me. 2nd floor. Clara looked at Nathan. The evidence is hidden in that room. Nathan understood what she was asking. We go tonight. They buried Eli near the creek before leaving. Nathan placed stones over the grave and promised he would return with a proper marker. By sunset, they were back at the ranch. Nathan locked Frank inside the feed shed and secured the door with 2 chains. Clara changed into a clean gray dress that had belonged to Nathan's mother. Nathan gathered rope, lanterns, and ammunition. They waited until darkness covered the land. Before mounting, Nathan looked at Clara. You can still leave. I can take Frank's confession to the federal court. He will deny everything. You could die inside that house. So could you. Nathan stepped closer. I do not want to see you tied again. Clara's expression softened. Then help me finish this. They rode toward Dry Creek beneath a moonless sky. Rusk's house stood on a hill outside town, large and dark against the stars. They left the horses in a cottonwood grove and found the dry well near the eastern fence. Behind it, hidden beneath weeds, was a wooden door. Nathan opened it. A narrow stone tunnel disappeared into darkness. Clara lit the lantern. They moved underground until the tunnel ended beneath the house. Nathan pushed open a trapdoor, and they climbed into a storage room. The house was quiet. Clara led him up the back stairs. Every step brought back memories she did not want, but she kept moving. They reached the 2nd floor. Clara stopped beside a locked door. This is it. Nathan forced the lock with his knife. Inside was a small room with 1 window. Chains still hung from the wall. Nathan saw them and felt anger rise inside him. Clara crossed to a loose floorboard beneath the bed. She pulled it up. The space was empty. Her face went pale. No. Nathan searched the room. Are you sure? I put everything here. A voice came from the doorway. I know. Calvin Rusk stood behind them with a shotgun in his hands. Two armed men waited beside him. Rusk smiled. I was wondering when you would come back for it. Nathan reached for his gun. Rusk raised the shotgun. Do that and Clara dies. Clara stared at him. Where are the papers? Rusk stepped inside. Somewhere safe. He looked at Nathan. You should have taken your dying ranch and left town when you had the chance. Nathan moved in front of Clara. Rusk's smile widened. Tomorrow morning the bank takes the Cole Ranch. By noon, every page of evidence against me will be ash. He aimed the shotgun at Nathan's chest. And before sunrise, both of you will be buried beside the man you found at Blackstone Creek. Calvin Rusk kept the shotgun aimed at Nathan's chest, while his two men entered the room. Clara stood beside the loose floorboard, her face pale but controlled. The chains on the wall moved slightly in the cold night air. She looked at them once, then turned her eyes back to Rusk. You should have burned the papers already, she said. Rusk smiled. I wanted you to see them first. He reached inside his coat and pulled out a folded packet tied with red string. Clara's breath caught. Her father's seal was pressed into the wax. Rusk held the packet above the lantern flame. One small fire, he said, and your father's last brave act disappears. Nathan watched Rusk's hands carefully. The shotgun was steady, but Rusk was enjoying the moment too much. Men like him always believed fear made everyone slow. Nathan knew fear could also make a person fast. One of the guards stepped behind Clara and grabbed her arm. Nathan's jaw tightened. Let her go. Rusk laughed. You still think you can order men around, Cole? No, Nathan said. I think you are frightened. The smile left Rusk's face. Frightened of what? Of a woman you once kept chained in this room. Clara looked at Nathan. She understood what he was doing. He was making Rusk angry, pulling his attention away from everything else. Rusk moved closer. She was nothing when I found her. She was Judge Whitfield's daughter, Nathan replied, and she was smarter than every man working for you. Rusk raised the shotgun until the barrel almost touched Nathan's chest. She will die before she reaches any court. A loud crash came from below. Everyone froze. Then a man shouted from the first floor. Fire! Smoke pushed beneath the bedroom door. Rusk turned toward the hallway. That small movement was enough. Clara drove her heel down on the guard's foot and pulled free. Nathan struck the shotgun barrel aside as Rusk fired. The blast tore through the wall. Nathan grabbed Rusk around the waist, and both men crashed into the bed. The second guard reached for his pistol, but Clara threw the lantern at him. The glass shattered against the floor. Flames spread across the rug. The guard jumped back, covering his face. Clara picked up the fallen shotgun and pointed it at him. Drop your weapon. He hesitated. The flames climbed the curtains. Drop it now. The pistol hit the floor. Nathan and Rusk fought across the room. Rusk struck Nathan in the ribs, then drove him against the wall. Nathan felt pain shoot through his side, but he held on. Rusk pulled a knife from his belt. You ruined everything, he growled. Nathan caught his wrist. You ruined yourself. Rusk pushed harder. The knife moved closer to Nathan's throat. Behind them, smoke filled the room. Clara tried to move toward Nathan, but the unarmed guard rushed her. She turned the shotgun and struck him across the face. He fell beside the burning curtains. Nathan drove his head into Rusk's face. Rusk stumbled backward. Nathan hit him once, then again. The knife dropped. Rusk reached for the packet of papers lying near the bed. A burning piece of curtain fell across the floor between them. Clara rushed forward and kicked the packet away from the flames. Rusk grabbed her ankle. She fell hard. Nathan caught Rusk by the coat and pulled him away from her. He dragged him toward the hallway, but another gunshot came from the stairs. A bullet struck the doorframe beside Nathan's head. More of Rusk's men were coming. Clara picked up the packet. "We need to leave." Nathan pulled the bedroom door shut and pushed a chair beneath the handle. The fire had already spread across half the room. "What caused the fire downstairs?" Clara asked. "I do not know." A familiar voice shouted from the hallway. "Cole." Nathan stared at the door. Frank Dalton stood on the other side. "I am opening the way out," Frank called. "Move before the whole house burns." Nathan looked at Clara. "He escaped the feed shed." Clara held the papers against her chest. "He may still be helping Rusk." The chair jumped as someone struck the door. Frank shouted again. "I came to save my own neck. The sheriff is outside and he saw Rusk's men shoot at me." Rusk laughed from the floor. "You fools believe him." Frank fired through the lock. The door swung open. Smoke rolled into the room. Frank stood in the hallway holding a revolver. Blood ran from a cut above his eye. Behind him, one of Rusk's men lay wounded near the stairs. Frank looked at Nathan. "You can arrest me later." Nathan lifted Rusk from the floor and pushed him toward the door. "Lead the way." They moved down the back stairs as fire spread through the upper floor. Clara kept the packet beneath her dress. Frank went first, firing once when another guard appeared near the kitchen. Outside, men ran from the stable carrying buckets. The sheriff stood near the front gate with 4 deputies. Rusk straightened when he saw him. "Sheriff Danner," he shouted, "arrest them." The sheriff looked at Nathan, Clara, and Frank. Then he looked at the burning house. "For what?" "They broke into my home and tried to kill me." Frank stepped forward. He kept stolen land papers upstairs. He ordered Eli Brooks killed and paid me to poison Nathan Cole's cattle. Rusk stared at him. "You lying dog." Frank's voice shook. "I am done dying for you." Rusk reached for the pistol hidden beneath his coat. Nathan saw it first. He pushed Clara aside. The pistol fired. Nathan felt a burning pain across his shoulder and fell to one knee. The deputies raised their rifles. "Drop it," Sheriff Danner shouted. Rusk backed toward the stable, firing wildly. One deputy fell behind a water barrel. Clara rushed to Nathan, but he pushed himself upright. "I am all right." Blood covered his sleeve, but the bullet had only cut across the top of his shoulder. Rusk reached the stable and jumped onto a saddled horse. He kicked through the rear gate and rode into the darkness. Sheriff Danner turned to his deputies. "After him." Nathan grabbed his horse's reins. Clara caught his arm. "You are wounded." "He is heading toward the railroad." "How do you know?" "That is the fastest road out of the county." Nathan mounted with one arm. Clara climbed onto the chestnut mare beside him. "You are not coming." "I know where he will go." The sheriff and 2 deputies followed them into the night. Rusk rode south toward Blackstone Creek. The moon had risen above the hills, giving enough light to see his trail. Clara stayed close to Nathan. "He has money hidden in the old mine," she said. "I heard him mention it when I was his prisoner." They reached the creek before dawn. Rusk's horse stood near the mine entrance. Nathan dismounted slowly. His shoulder had become stiff, but he drew his pistol with his good hand. Sheriff Danner raised a lantern. They entered the mine. Water dripped from the stone ceiling. The passage narrowed until they reached the chamber where Eli had been found. Rusk stood beside an iron box. Bundles of money and land deeds covered the ground. He held a pistol against Frank Dalton's younger brother, Thomas, who had been guarding the money. Thomas looked terrified. Rusk smiled when he saw them. You should have stayed at your ranch, Cole. Nathan raised his pistol. Let the boy go. He worked for me. He is 16, Frank said from behind the sheriff. He did not know what you were doing. Rusk pressed the gun harder against Thomas's head. Put your weapons down. No one moved. Clara stepped forward. I have the papers. Rusk's eyes turned toward her. She pulled out the packet. You want them? Bring them to me. Clara walked slowly across the chamber. Nathan watched her, his heart beating hard. When she reached the center, Clara stopped. My father told me truth only dies when good people refuse to carry it. She tore the packet in half. Rusk's face twisted. No. He shoved Thomas aside and aimed at Clara. Nathan fired. The bullet struck Rusk's hand. His pistol fell into the dirt. Sheriff Danner and the deputies rushed forward. They forced Rusk to his knees and locked irons around his wrists. Rusk stared at Clara. You destroyed your own evidence. Clara looked down at the torn pages. These are copies. Rusk went still. The real papers were hidden inside the saddle of the chestnut mare. Nathan looked at her in surprise. Clara gave him a small smile. I moved them before we left the ranch. For the first time, Calvin Rusk had nothing to say. The federal hearing began 2 weeks later in Silver Ridge. Clara stood before the judge and told everything. She spoke about her father, the false land claims, the stolen horses, the poisoned cattle, and the men Rusk had paid. Frank confessed to Eli's murder and agreed to testify against Rusk. His confession did not free him from punishment, but it helped return land to 12 families. The bank canceled Nathan's debt after the false papers were exposed. Walter Hale received his ranch and horses back, but he allowed Nathan to keep the 2 chestnut mares. They already found their home, Walter said. By autumn, the Cole ranch had changed. The cattle recovered after the poisoned water was cleaned. The barn roof was repaired. New fence posts stood around the north field. A proper stone marker was placed over Eli's grave. One evening, Nathan found Clara near the corral, brushing the same mare she had treated on her first morning. The setting sun turned the hills gold. The federal court offered you a position, Nathan said. Clara nodded. They want me to help examine land records. That sounds important. It is. Nathan looked toward the house. When do you leave? Clara placed the brush on the fence. They asked when I could begin. Nathan waited. I told them I needed time to decide. He looked at her. Why? Clara stepped closer. Because I found something here I was not looking for. Nathan's voice softened. What did you find? A man who saw a person when everyone else saw something worthless. Nathan lowered his eyes. I only untied a rope. You gave me a place where I did not have to be afraid. She took his hand. Nathan looked at their joined fingers. You saved my ranch, he said. Clara shook her head. We saved each other. Nathan smiled. Does that mean you are staying? Clara looked across the fields, the rebuilt barn, and the 2 chestnut mares standing peacefully inside the corral. Yes, she said, but I still plan to work for the court. Nathan squeezed her hand. Then I suppose I will have to learn how to share you with the law. Clara laughed softly. It was the first free laugh Nathan had ever heard from her. Months earlier, cruel men had thrown her into an auction lot with 2 starving horses. They believed she had no value and no voice. They never understood that Clara Whitfield carried the truth that would destroy Calvin Rusk's empire. They never understood that she would save Nathan's land, his cattle, and the name his father had left him. Most of all, they never understood that the quiet woman they had treated like nothing would become the strongest part of Nathan Cole's future.